Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. I am your host, Javon Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we are going to be continuing Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Saskue Uchiha Was a Girl? The Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 3. But first, as always, if you're a fan of the channel and everything that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Where we last left off with our series, Boruto and friends were attempting to find who the true arson was in the village hidden in the leaves, trying to find the one of whom had been starting fires and was seemingly besmirching the name of Boruto's family. However, in the process, Boruto, while confronting a masked shinobi who appeared to have the Sharingan, Boruto would instead find himself being the one accused, with all of the evidence pointing to him, and with his subsequent arrest. Now, Boruto's friends are left trying to figure out what truly happened, as Naruto and others are also trying to figure things out as well, as dark secrets of Konoha's past now come back to light. The sins of the past are now coming to affect the present, and ones that could truly have lasting effects on the village. How will Boruto and friends be able to handle this? Who is the one truly responsible? As it seems as though the dark legacy of Danzo and the Foundation is coming back to light in the worst of times. For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Saskue Uchiha Was a Girl? The Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 3. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Boruto walked back to his cell, tiredness being the only expression that he could have on his face. He had ran out of tears long ago. At this point, he just wanted it to be over with. Naruto could see the fatigue on his son, and he carried him. Thankfully, Boruto had been moved from solitary confinement to a basic holding cell. One that wasn't small and cramped. It was a place you went to where they weren't sure what to do with you. Technically, you hadn't been charged with anything, so there was no way that they could send you to a prison. But at the same time, it was a place where they could hold until further judgment could be given. Naruto was absolutely pissed to see what his children were going through over something that he knew they had nothing to do with. It was more than what any father should ever have to experience. But at the same time, there was no real answer for what was going on. The fires that were being started. Someone with glowing red eyes akin to the Sharingan. Realistically, the only possibilities were Satomi, but she had one Rinnegan, so that couldn't be her. Itachi, but Itachi was with Satomi right now, so that couldn't be it. His children, although none of them had ever really unlocked a Sharingan. Even what the crowd saw from Boruto, he didn't really unlock it. You could say it was more of a flicker than anything else. Like, he was almost pushed into unlocking a Sharingan, but the process felt incomplete. Kind of like downloading some precious data, but before the download can be completed, it got cancelled. That's essentially what happened to Boruto, but yet the optics didn't make it look any better. As Boruto was taken back to his holding cell, he looked up to Naruto and asked what he had done wrong. Naruto looked down at his son and knelt, giving him a tight hug, telling him he had done nothing wrong and they were going to get to the bottom of this, and he promised they would be back with their family once again. For Boruto, the only thing he had was his father's promise. That was the only thing he could cling to. Inside of Boruto's cell, a small white snake slowly watched and observed. In the meantime, both Sarada and Jiraiya would be taken in by Sakura and Kiba, along with their daughter Rio, to live with them for a bit. Naruto wanted to make sure his children were safe, and Sakura and Kiba were more than willing to look after his other two children. In the meantime at the academy, things only seemed to be going from bad to worse. More of the students started to murmur and speak. It started to become a bit too much for Sarada. She knew her brother wasn't a criminal, and yet it seemed as though all the people, the ones of whom she thought were her friends, had seemingly turned on her. Only a few had stuck by her through all this time. That being Chocho, the class rep Sumire, as well as Riho Inuzuka. Even Momo checked on her to make sure she was doing alright. But all the same, it left Sarada questioning many things. How could one lead a village if trust could be lost so easily? Of course, she still had the resolve to be Hokage, but you could say that this was a test of her resolve. A test to love a village that, at the drop of a hat, could stop loving you back. Both Shikadai and Mitsuki, along with the other boys of the class, Boruto's closest friends, such as Dinky, Iwabe, Hoki, and Inojin, they were all worried for Boruto. They were still trying to run through their heads what had happened. They knew that they had gone to search in separate directions, trying to find where the culprit might be. But still, it seemed as though everything that happened, it was like it was targeting Boruto specifically. As Momo listened in from a distance, she would ask her cousin, Mel, what he had seen. Mel would tell her that he used his Byakugan to search from a distance. While it was pretty hard to see through the fire, he could confirm one thing. Boruto was in there with someone else. Someone in a cloak of some kind. He couldn't get a full description. This confirmed one thing. Boruto was not alone, meaning that there was someone who was involved. And in all likelihood, Boruto was the ire of whoever this mystery person was. Shino Sensei would have to get his class under control. While even he was upset with the treatment of his student Boruto, he knew that now wasn't the time to dwell on such things. He had to try to keep his class focused and moving forward. And for now, they were going to be engaging in a work studies program, allowing for the students to see the other traits and aspects of life, not just that of the career path of the shinobi, but all different career choices. They would be allowed to pick where they wanted to intern at for the week, and they could do so at their own discretion. The boys would instantly look towards going for the mail system apprenticeship. The Konoha mail system was one of the more refined of any sort of delivery system within the village. But the boys had their own reasons for doing so. Delivering mail would be the fastest way for them to move about the city freely. Doing so, they could cover more ground and potentially find whoever the culprit was, the true bombers. In the meantime, Sai would begin his own investigation along with the Anbu, as there were other attacks that were going on, not just the fires. There were villagers that had been acting rather strange. They became aggressive and agitated, and then, seemingly enough, it was as if almost all of their chakra was absorbed from their bodies. As Sai would investigate the various attack locations, there he would find traces of not only of the Hashirama cell, but also of Nine-Tails chakra. The moment Naruto and Shikamaru learned of this, they would be absolutely shocked. Naruto especially, as he asked Kurama if he felt anything up until now. Kurama, who would often be napping, said that from time to time he felt little blips of Nine-Tails chakra here and there. But to be honest, they were blips. They were here one minute and gone the next. He thought that maybe it was just their senses getting dulled from not having had any real competition or fighting in so many years. Though, if what Sai said was true, then this was something entirely new to Kurama. Naruto would be a bit pissed that the Nine-Tails didn't say anything earlier, but it couldn't be helped. The only thing that mattered now was clearing his son's name and finding the ones truly responsible. Sai would believe that the harvesting of chakra and the usage of the Nine-Tails chakra could be related to that of the Foundation, a secret Anbu of which he was once a part of, led by Danzo Shimura. Sai would go to going through the records of the Foundation, hoping that he might be able to find a clue that could shed light on the matter for him. While Sai continued his investigation, Naruto would decide to take time to go back home to get a change of clothes, as well as stopping to see how both Jiraiya and Sarada were doing. As he went to check on them, he would see that something was bothering Sarada, and knowing that he didn't want to ignore his children's feelings. Once Jiraiya had gone to sleep, both he and Sarada would go for a quick walk. He couldn't be with her for too long, but he felt as though he could be there just long enough to hear what was troubling her. As the two walked through the streets of Konoha, he noticed that Sarada didn't really look at the people as much, or anywhere for that matter, just keeping her head down. Naruto would ask his daughter what was wrong, and Sarada would ask how he could do it. Naruto was confused, but she explained. How could he be Hokage of a village that would turn on his own son? Why was it seemingly so easy for him? It was like it didn't bother him at all. Naruto took a deep breath as the two of them walked to a bridge overlooking the city. Naruto would explain to Sarada that there was a time when the village hated him. It hated him very much for things that were beyond his control. And to be honest, he hated them right back. When he wanted to become Hokage at first, it was simply so that he could be acknowledged, so that his existence could be confirmed by others. He just wanted the attention at any and all costs. But then, things changed. He met their mother, Satomi, who acknowledged him before anyone else did. This made Sarada smile a bit, as it was always her favorite story to hear about how her mother and father met one another, and it was a story she never got tired of the boy and girl who met under a tree as the full moon shined above them during the night of the winter festival, a festival that was coming up in just a few months. The children had always known that the winter festival was important to their parents, and this was the reason why. It was on that night that their fates changed in a way that could never be undone. Naruto would explain to Sarada that to be Hokage, it meant bearing a lot of things that could often crush those who weren't strong enough. But for Naruto, he had the strength to do it because he had a great support system around him. He had a loving and caring wife who was just as sacrificing as he was for the village. He had 3 beautiful children, all of whom were growing before his very eyes and coming into their own. His own children who had also had to make their own sacrifices as well, and he appreciated them for that. It made him want to try even harder to protect their home. As far as the villagers, he couldn't convince everyone of the truth, but even still, he loved this village like it was his family, and because of that, there wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for it. But at the same time, there wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for his son. Assured, he would give his daughter a tight hug, and promising her that everything was going to be alright. As he made this promise, Sarada also felt comfort as well. For any child of Naruto's, there was one thing that they always learned. Never going back on your word was their family's shinobi way. And it was one that would never be broken. In the meantime, the boys would continue on with their work studies program. Using the mail system, the boys would travel all throughout Konoha, desperately trying to find where the bomber or the attacks were coming from. Yet it always seemed to be as though it were out of their reach, almost as if whoever was committing these atrocities knew where they were all going to be before it happened, and seemed to just always be in the location that they were either just at or hadn't gone to yet. It was like a never-ending game of cat and mouse, and they realized that they were getting nowhere. Things only seemed to be getting worse though, when they had seen on TV there was another incident at the water purification plant where a few of their classmates were. In an instant, they would all begin rushing over there immediately. When they arrived, they would see that other shinobi personnel had already been on the scene. Even the Hokage had been there as well. He had managed to save all of those inside, as well as the students. Among the injured was the class rep Sumire. Many of the academy students would go to visit her in the hospital, and Sumire would assure them that she was fine. The boys, on the other hand, would be even more ashamed of themselves. Their friend Boruto needed their help. They had to get to the bottom of this as soon as possible, yet it seemed as though all of their efforts were in vain. That's when Momo would approach them. She had plans of her own, seeing how they seemed to be running around in circles. It was obvious that from what they were doing, every day that they went on patrol, it seemed as though whoever was causing the attacks knew what their routes were going to be right before they did it. And it always seemed that they were one worker short, one that could cover the missing area. Once they had realized their errors, Momo would offer her assistance. If she agreed to join them, then they would cover all of their tracks. Upon doing so, they would then be able to not be out of place when the next attack occurred. Taking her up on her offer, the boys would put their plan into motion. With the help of Momo, they would show her where all of the mail routes were in the village that had basically been divided up into sections. The boys would then each take their respective packages and they would all leave, along with Momo heading in each respective direction. Upon doing so, a masked figure would enter into the mail station. Believing that they were all alone, they would slip a pill into their mouth from under the mask. Their chakra would begin to amplify and would begin to rage around. However, just as quickly as their chakra was beginning to rise, they would hear a voice as they looked up to see that all of the students hadn't actually left in the first place, but rather, they had stayed the whole time, knowing that whoever it was that was behind the attacks had to have been watching them personally, and that in all likelihood, they were using their route system in order to figure out where they were going to be originally. Upon doing so, they knew that if they all covered every route, the only area that would be left unattended would be the office itself, and that was where the culprit was going to strike. The kids would jump to attack the masked shinobi. However, before they could get too close, the masked ninja would use a fireball jutsu, attempting to incinerate them. However, Iwabe would think quickly and block with an earth-release mud wall. From out of nowhere, they would cast a wind jutsu, as the masked shinobi would use the mail all around them to fly around and attack at the various students trying to get close, looking to make their escape. However, Mitsuki and Momo would be quickly behind them, chasing them from out of the building and deep underground to where the sewer system was. It was almost like a labyrinth, and even Mitsuki got separated for some time. But Momo, with her Byakugan, she could keep track easily, and as she got closer, she was eventually able to catch up to the masked ninja. The masked ninja turning around to face Momo, and Momo, clear as day, would see the one that was responsible. She would actually be a bit shocked that she didn't see it sooner. But now that she thought about it, it all truly made sense. But now, what was she going to do? Before anything else could be said, as she attempted to charge at the masked ninja once again, the masked ninja would create a wall of water, blocking Momo just long enough as she continued on in her escape, eventually moving far enough away that the Byakugan couldn't track them any longer. As Mitsuki would catch up to Momo, he would ask her what had happened, and Momo would tell Mitsuki what she had learned. Meanwhile, Sai would investigate the hideout of Tsunaki Shigaraki, real name Tsunaki Shimura, a missing and former member of the Root organization, otherwise known as the Foundation, and the son of Danzo Shimura. While looking through the research, he would find that of various pills that were being formed, they were known as the tailed beast drugs, as well as compound Uchiha. They were drugs made specifically from the DNA of both Satomi and Naruto, as well as other research that had been conducted on the Sharingan and the Nine Tails in general. A new like weapon that had been created that could give shinobi the powers of either the Uchiha or of the Nine Tails itself. Realizing this, as well as seeing Tsunaki's daughter, He realized who the culprit was as well, and would race off to find her immediately. In the meantime, as Boruto sat in his cell, the guards would be called away and Boruto would be left alone. Out of nowhere, the door would open and Mitsuki would reveal himself. He asked Boruto how he were doing and if he were alright, and Boruto assured him that he were fine, but he asked how everyone else was doing, how his family was doing, Sarada, Jiraiya, everyone. Mitsuki would assure him that they were fine, and that Sarada and Jiraiya were currently at Ryo's house with Sakura and Kiba. Relieved, Boruto would ask what was going on out there and if they had found anything, and Mitsuki would tell them that indeed they had. They had found the one responsible. In fact, Momo was on her way to deal with the culprit right now. Boruto was shocked. Although looking back on it, he kind of wished that he would have at least asked Momo to help originally. She had the Byakugan. They probably could have made a lot better progress a lot sooner. But still, now wasn't the time. As he raced out of his cell, he would look to Mitsuki and ask who the culprit was and where they were. However, Mitsuki would shake his head. As he looked at Boruto, he would tell him that was something he probably didn't want the answer to. But Boruto looked to Mitsuki anxiously, telling him that now wasn't the time. They needed to figure out who it was, and they had to get there as soon as possible to back up Momo. Mitsuki would simply nod, and he would lead Boruto forward, as the two made their way from out of the holding cells, as nightfall was beginning to come upon the Hidden Leaf Village. Meanwhile, deep within a forest, a young girl stood. On her back was a marking she had been branded with long ago. The time had now come. The girl was going to fulfill her duty and do what was required of her. Her father had already made the preparations on his end, along with his followers. They were just waiting for the opportune time to strike against the village. She would be the one that would give the signal. As she ran through the hand signs, making the preparations needed, before she could finish, she would hear rustling from the bushes behind her. There wasn't any need to turn around. She simply smiled as she looked up. "So, you finally found me. Well, it wasn't like you were trying to hide, class rep." Momo Hyuga. Should have known. You know, if I had known you were going to be there, I would have made better preparations. Not like it matters. You don't really think you can beat me, do you? You might put on that cute little girl act for everyone else in class, but I'm not fooled. Well, I guess there's no getting behind that dojutsu of yours. Although it doesn't really matter now. Nothing does. Momo looked at her angrily as her Byakugan activated. No, it matters. Why? Is it because of Boruto? Is it because I put your little boyfriend in jail? Momo said absolutely nothing, as the full moon shined down upon them. Both Boruto and Mitsuki making their way as quickly as possible. They would hear the clash of kunai off in the distance. As they raced forward out into the clearing, they would see Momo engaged in combat with what appeared to be the class rep, Sumire. Sumire was holding her own against Momo, even with her Byakugan, better than anyone in their class could have given her credit for. But for Boruto, he didn't understand. Why were they fighting? And why did it look like they were about to kill one another? Before either one could land a lethal strike, Boruto would quickly move in between them, pushing them both back. Momo was shocked to see that Boruto had arrived, and even more shocked that Mitsuki had allowed it to happen. And for Sumire, she didn't expect him to be here. Guys, what's going on? Why are you fighting? Come on, we're both classmates here, all of us. Momo shook her head. Boruto, the one who's been causing all of this, she's right there. Boruto thought this was some type of joke, as he turned to see Sumire looking at him. Boruto asked if that were true. Sumire said nothing, as she pulled a pill from a vial from her waist. She popped it into her mouth as she opened her eyes to stare back at him. Her eyes were the glow of a bright red, and Boruto could see clear as day. She had the Sharingan, but those were the eyes that he saw that night in the fire. There was no mistaking it. It was her. I didn't think you and I would meet like this so soon, Boruto. Not that I expect you to understand. But it seems as though this can't be helped. So show me what you've got, son of Lord Seventh. As she held up her kunai and prepared for battle, Momo activated her Byakugan and was ready to fight as well. Boruto caught in between the two, unsure of what to do next. As little did the people of Konoha know, the countdown to a potential doomsday had already began. And for Boruto, the sins of the past had now caught up to the present. This concludes Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl? The Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 3. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned as we are going to be in the conclusion with the next part in this series, with Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl? The Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 4, the arc finale. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.